Discover 3 spine-chilling true Airbnb stories. Exposed secrets of the cursed and sinister. Sarah had always hoped for a little escape, a break from the noise that clung to the streets of Chicago like a bad smell. At 35, a waitress and single mom, she was ready to trade the chaos for a weekend of peace in nature. She booked an Airbnb that looked cozy online, more than enough space for her 2 kids, Tyler and Lily. It seemed perfect. When they pulled up, the quaint white picket fence felt like a whisper of hope. But the quiet street, draped with overgrown weeds and sagging houses, sent a shiver down Sarah's spine. Something was off. As twilight fell, an unsettling chill crept into the air with the evening breeze. The moments in the house that once offered comfort turned sour. Shadows danced strangely on the walls. She shrugged it off, convinced it was just her tired mind playing tricks. Another night passed uneventfully, but the second evening grew heavy with dread. It started with whispers, soft, unintelligible murmurs, and they seemed to float down from the attic. Goosebumps traced Sarah's skin as she recalled the cold breeze that swept through the rooms when the window was firmly shut. "Mom, can we play hide and seek?" Tyler called from the corner, still blissfully innocent. "Sure, honey," she replied, but her voice shook. The rustle from the attic distracted her, pulling away her focus. Instinctively, she instructed them not to wander too far. The sound continued, wrapping around her like a suffocating blanket. Sarah's heart raced. Was that laughter? Or something worse? On a hunch, she dove into the dark corners of the web, unearthing a review that turned her stomach. 2 families had gone silent here, disappearing during their stay. Panic set in, her breath quickening as she grasped the screen. Dark dealings, hidden truths, and a warning complaint stifled by local authorities. Why hadn't she noticed? The cursed house was no charming retreat, it was a concealed trap. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Sarah's anxiety swelled with each creak of the floor beneath her feet. Tyler and Lily had gone silent, something gnawed at her stomach. The whispers now felt more insistent, pulling her toward the attic's door, just footsteps away. As she steadied her breath, she felt something shift behind her, an ominous presence, an unnerving pressure filling the air. The attic door creaked open under her trembling hands, revealing a swirling darkness. The shadows didn't just dance, they seemed alive, pulling at the edges of her sanity. And then she heard it, a gentle whisper, Mommy, one of her children's names, but deep and haunting, a voice that wasn't her own. Fear surged through every fiber of her being. With adrenaline pumping, she finally realized the truth. It wasn't just the house that was cursed, but the very host she had trusted. The smiling face in the listing, the charming reviews, all of it was a facade. Her breath caught in her throat as the world around her pulsed with dread. What horrors awaited her? The walls closed in as Sarah understood one undeniable fact: escape was becoming a desperate fantasy. In an instant, Sarah felt paralyzed, the words echoing in her mind. Mommy, the voice was unmistakably Lily's, yet it twisted the innocence of her daughter's tone into something grotesque. With shaking hands, she fumbled backward, trying to gather her courage. Behind her, Tyler's small figure appeared, his eyes wide with confusion. Mom, what's wrong? He asked, concern etching his features. Stay back, Tyler, she hissed, heart pounding. But it was too late. The presence that had been lingering behind her surged forward, a draft of ice that swept through the attic as if it had materialized from the very shadows. Stay away. Don't touch anything. Panic seized her voice as she took a step back, feeling the bumps of the stairwell pressing into her back. Tyler inched closer, drawn by the whispering sounds that danced through the gaps in the walls. A fleeting shadow flitted across the attic's far corner, and Sarah's breath caught. "Mommy!" Lily's voice rang out again, eerily close. "Too close." "Lily?" Panic sliced through Sarah, ripping her mind from the dreamy oblivion. It was one thing to hear her daughter's voice, yet another to feel her presence lurking somewhere they couldn't see. "Lily, where are you?" Up here the voice had warped, a sing-song tone that sent chilling shivers down Sarah's spine. It echoed in a way that felt wrong, like a puppet with strings pulled by a malicious hand. She felt the house closing in on her, every creak of wood resonating with a sinister laughter. "Get back!" Sarah shouted. She was on the verge of marching up into that dark abyss, but fear held her captive. The air thickened, heavy with despair, threatening to suffocate her spirit. In that moment of hesitation, a crash echoed from the attic, a sound like 1,000 shards of glass breaking. "Mom, what was that?" Tyler's voice trembled, bringing Sarah's attention back to her son. "Stay here, Tyler. Don't move." She turned, steeling herself against the pull of the stairs. Every rational thought screamed at her to flee, but a darker instinct urged her to confront what lay beyond that door. Was it courage? Or was it foolishness? With one last deep breath, she stepped into the gloom of the attic, each step echoing ominously against the floorboards. The shadows closed around her and clung to her skin, as if the darkness itself wanted to consume her. Her eyes adjusted, revealing figures in the corners, doll-like shapes draped in dust and tattered clothing. They seemed to watch her, abandoned remnants of another time. "Mommy! I'm scared!" Tyler called, his voice quaking as he stepped closer. "Tyler, get back!" The urgency burst from her lips, but the words were lost in the swirling darkness. Her heart pounded, tearing at her resolve. She turned back, ready to pull him into safety until she felt a cold hand clasp her shoulder. "Let go!" she screamed, jerking away. The laughter echoed back, not from the doll-like figures but from the very walls. In that moment, the attic felt like a living entity, suffocating in its intent, hungry for them. She couldn't hold on any longer. She had to make a choice: fight and uncover the truth, or run and hope to escape the grip of the sinister house. Swooping shadows closed in, invasive whispers twisting every thought. "Mommy, help!" Lily cried out again, her voice reverberating through the darkness, making Sarah trip over her own feet. The walls pulsed, a heartbeat of the house closing in, and in that awful moment, Sarah knew one thing: the battle between fear and safety was about to begin, but at what cost? Just as the faint light from the attic window flickered, she spotted something glinting on the floor. What was it? A key? A warning? Or something much darker? She'd find out soon. The air grew thick, the atmosphere crackling with impending doom, as she prepared to take the plunge into the unknown. The coldness continued to cling to Sarah's skin as she crouched to inspect the glimmering object. The flickering light revealed the truth: a small, rusted key. It was old and worn, almost like it belonged to a time and place long forgotten. Her heart raced, torn between a desperate curiosity and the paralyzing terror that coursed through her veins. It felt wrong to touch it, yet a compelling urge pushed her fingers toward the chilling metal. "Mom, what did you find?" Tyler whispered, his voice barely a tremor in the growing darkness. She glanced back over her shoulder, realizing that the shadows seemed to thicken, creeping toward Tyler, eager to drag him down. "I don't know yet," she whispered back, pulling the key closer to her chest. "But I don't like this." "Don't like what?" Tyler pressed, his youthful innocence clashing with the horrors surrounding them. "Everything," she mumbled, uncertain of how to explain the feeling that liquid dread filled her veins, that the very walls conspired against them. Each creak of the house felt like a sinister whisper, echoing a dark warning she couldn't decipher. Clutching the key, Sarah resolved to confront the whispering darkness. "We need to find Lily. She's up here, Ty. I can feel her," she said, forcing herself to sound braver than she felt. The attic felt alive, the shadows writhing with anticipation. She stepped tentatively, the floorboards creaking ominously beneath her. The dolls, with their vacant eyes, watched as if waiting for a show to unfold, their silence more chilling than any scream. "Lily!" Sarah called out, her voice tremulous. The name shattered the silence, causing a flurry of dark shapes to flit about the attic corners, stirring the dust into swirling eddies that danced in the musty air. "Mom, come back!" Tyler urged, but she felt a pull in her chest, a horrifying promise that she had to uncover. "Stay close!" she barked. They moved deeper into the attic, and just as they reached what felt like the heart of the darkness, a sudden rush of cold air swept through, pushing her hair back and making her skin prickle. "Mommy!" The voice came again, sharper this time, echoing in a frantic pitch. Sarah felt her breath quicken. They moved to a wooden chest in the far corner, its surface carved with intricate designs that matched nothing in the rest of the house. The key in her hand seemed to hum, vibrating with an energy that beckoned her to use it. She raised it toward the lock, trembling as she inserted it. The moment the key turned, the air thickened, both exhilarating and suffocating, as if the house held its breath. The lid creaked open, revealing a cloud of dust that flowed out like an exhaled breath of despair, but the sight within froze Sarah in disbelief. Faded photographs lay strewn inside, their edges yellowed and curling, snapping memories contained in the attic like secrets begging to be unleashed. A framed picture of Lily stared back at her. But it was wrong. The girl in the picture had hollow eyes, a twisted smile that sent ice through her veins. "Mom!" Tyler's voice trembled behind her, filled with confusion and fear. "Tyler, get back!" She turned abruptly, scanning the dark corners of the attic. The shadows writhed, growing thicker, almost sentient. Groans and sighs rose from the very walls, twisting into a cacophony of despair. Suddenly, the pictures shifted, faces morphing. Lily's laughter turned to shrieks. They echoed in her mind like a mocking chant. The attic pulsed with energy, demanding answers she didn't have, pressing against her sanity like a force of nature. "Come play with us," Mommy whispered, a chorus of voices, the chilling sound bending her thoughts, overlapping reality as the darkness closed in. Sarah's blood ran cold. What had she awakened? Before she could react, the floor beneath her buckled, and she stumbled back, dragging Tyler with her. They fell into a chaotic tumble, the images around them swirling, closing in like a dark tide. As they crashed to the ground, the attic's door suddenly slammed shut behind them, sealing them in darkness. In the heavy silence, a new voice emerged, deep and haunting. "You were never meant to leave." A new wave of terror washed over her as desperation clawed at her throat. The darkness felt electric, a malevolent force swirling around them, and Sarah held onto her son, grasping the key tightly in her hand. What had they unsealed in this cursed place? And how could they possibly escape? The darkness pressed in from all sides, thick like fog, wrapping around Sarah and Tyler as they lay on the floor. Fear screamed in Sarah's mind. A cold sweat dripped down her back, and she could see Tyler's wide eyes reflecting her own panic. She had to keep him safe. "Tyler," she whispered, her heart pounding. "We need to get out of here." But the shadows didn't relent. They danced and flickered, morphing, twisting into figures that seemed both familiar and foreign. Every time Sarah thought she glimpsed a face, it vanished, replaced by the jagged edges of darkness. "Mommy!" Tyler whimpered, his voice cracking. "I don't like it here." The ghostly words echoed, mocking her attempts to reassure him. "Come play with us, Mommy." The voices were stronger now, filling the air with a palpable dread that felt alive. "Shut up!" Sarah shouted, rising to her knees, the key still gripped tightly in her palm. "Leave us alone." But the shadows laughed, a low, rasping sound that slithered through the attic. The photo of Lily lay unceremoniously on the ground, the mocking smile twisting again, dark and sinister. "This is all your fault," a chilling voice wailed, barely above a whisper but near enough to send shards of ice through Sarah's veins. "You shouldn't have opened it." The blood drained from Sarah's face, fear twisting her stomach like a knotted rope. "Tyler, we have to move." She clutched his arm, pulling him toward the chest. Maybe the key had unlocked something more than memories. It felt like they had unleashed a curse, but as they shifted, the air thickened further, like molasses clinging to their skin. The door remained shut, an impenetrable barrier, and the shadows surged closer. Each step Sarah took felt heavier, filled with the weight of unseen eyes watching their every move. "Mommy, help!" Tyler's voice trembled, panic rising like a tidal wave. "Stay close, please." She turned, scanning the corners of the attic again. A shadow lunged. Sarah gasped, pulling Tyler behind her as a figure formed from the darkness, its face obscured, but an eerie smile emerged, splitting its head down to the chin. "Don't you want to play?" It hissed, the tone twisting into something that tinged the air with sickening sweetness. "Please, just leave us alone," Sarah urged, her heart racing even faster. Every instinct told her to run, to shield her son, but she felt paralyzed, trapped in a web of darkness. Suddenly, the attic groaned, the very timbers creaking as if protesting against the horror unleashed within. The wall to her left shimmered, and for a heartbeat, she saw pictures flicker like old film childhood photos of Lily, but twisted, distorted, a nightmare reflected back. "Mommy! Look!" Tyler shrieked, pointing. What do you see?" Sarah's voice was a choked whisper. "Lily, she's in the wall." Then it hit like a tidal wave. The darkness began to separate, revealing a shape. A little girl with hollow eyes stared out, her lips curving into an unnatural grin. The very essence of dread wrapped around Sarah as she realized that was not just a shadow. "What do you want?" Sarah cried, fear clawing at her throat. "Come, Mommy, we can be together," the shadow girl called, reaching out a translucent hand, fingers curling like a beckoning vine. Tyler clung to Sarah's waist, his little body shaking. She looked at him, and for a moment, desperation filled her heart. Was this the price of keeping Lily's memory alive? "Sarah," the ghostly figure whispered. "Join us at LLB Fun," her instinct screeched at her. As she backed away, the shadows rushed again, and the temperature plunged. She felt the icy grip of fear coil around her lungs, threatening to steal her breath. "Run, Ty. We have to find a way out." Sarah shoved Tyler to move, but the shadows surged forward, their whispers growing louder. As they collided with her chest, she felt her resolve crack. A small part of her whispered that maybe they should stay, that maybe here they could find peace, reunion. But Sarah knew that was a lie. They had to escape. With one final push, she lunged towards the door. But before she reached it, a scream exploded behind them, piercing the heavy silence. The darkness shuddered, shifting as if in response to her panic. "Mommy, no!" Tyler cried as the shadows lunged toward him. In that split second, all Sarah could think was, how had it come to this? How had she stumbled upon this nightmare? They were on the brink of something she couldn't understand. "Hold on, Ty. Don't look back." But as they bolted toward the door, the shadow girl's laughter echoed, sinister and playful. "You can't leave us. We're forever now." As the darkness poured forth, swallowing the attic in a deep abyss, Sarah felt something slip from her grasp. The key. It clattered away, its chilling echo resounding through the void. And then, that haunting voice whispered again, "You were never meant to leave." What was this cursed place truly hiding? And what had she awakened in the darkness? The moment the key fell, chaos erupted. The shadows whipped around Sarah and Tyler like a tempest, swirling higher and denser, blocking out any remnants of light. She could feel Tyler trembling beside her, his small fingers gripping her shirt. "Keep your eyes on me, Tyler. Don't let go," she commanded, her voice a desperate whisper that barely reached her own ears over the tumult. Her heart raced faster than she thought possible, each beat amplifying the dread that seemed to churn the very air around them. In the heart of the dark swirl, the shape of the shadow girl seemed to pulse. "You can see me now, Mommy," she taunted, her voice a cruel melody that snaked through Sarah's mind. Every word felt like talons scratching at her sanity. "Shut up!" Sarah cried, but the sound was swallowed by the pressing shadows. She had to concentrate, had to find a way out. The door was just yards away, but it felt like an eternity. She pushed forward, forcing her legs to move, dragging Tyler along despite the oppressive weight of the darkness. Just as they reached the doorway, the laughter of the shadow girl crescendoed, filling the attic with a manic energy. The shadows lunged, darting like vipers toward Tyler. Sarah felt a flare of panic. "Tyler!" She screamed, yanking him close as an awful howler echoed behind them, reverberating off the walls, shaking the very foundations of the attic. Tyler stumbled, looking into the shadows with wide, fearful eyes. "Mommy, what is happening?" "I don't know." Her voice broke slightly. "We're going to get out. Just trust me." Behind her, the shadow girl loomed closer, her face just a blur, but the wicked grin sliced through the dark, like a beacon of dread. "You can't run. I'm always here." Always watching. Panic surged as they dove toward the door. Sarah yanked it, feeling the cold, rusted handle slip against her palm. It wouldn't budge. "No. No, no, no. Mommy, help." Tyler whimpered, his face a mask of pure terror. "Stay back." Sarah shouted, turning to face the darkness. With a sudden surge of fierce desperation, she raised her hand, the small piece of metal glimmering in the murky gloom. "You want this?" she yelled, waving the key. "Then come and get it." Laughter rang out, but it was different now, less playful and more sinister. The shadows paused as if intrigued, swirling hesitantly. "You should have left it alone," the voice cooed, almost seductively. A whisper inside Sarah's mind urged, "Just give it to them. You'll find peace." But she shook her head violently. No matter the hell they faced, she wouldn't surrender her son to the darkness. Suddenly, the attic rattled, dust and splintered wood raining down upon them like a dreadful snowstorm. Sarah backed against the door, pulling Tyler close, trying to shield him from the chaos. The key, the promise of escape, slipped from her fingers and disappeared into the depths of the black. "Mommy!" Tyler cried again, soft and small. Then, through the deep shadows, she saw the outline of an old trunk at the corner of the attic. A flicker of hope ignited inside her. "Tyler, over there." She pointed towards it, desperate determination flooding her veins. "We can hide. We can." The shadows screamed, a shrill, piercing sound that shattered Sarah's resolve. A mass of darkness surged toward them, seeking to envelop them whole. With every ounce of strength she had left, Sarah yanked the door open. But the shadow girl lurched forward, more solid now, the darkness coalescing around her like a second skin. "You can't escape, Mommy. You belong to us." "No." Sarah screamed, pushing Tyler through the door ahead of her. "Get to the stairs." But as her foot crossed the threshold, the wall of darkness exploded into the doorway, snagging her ankle like claws, yanking her back with a force that felt like death itself. "Mommy!" Tyler's shriek echoed down the corridor as Sarah was pulled back into the abyss. "Stay away from him!" she howled, clawing at the floor, fighting against the chilling grip that tightened around her. As she was dragged back, darkness closed in around her, blurring her vision and drowning her senses. "We're so happy you're here," the shadow girl laughed, her voice melding with the cacophony of panicked whispers. "You won't be lonely anymore." Fingers of fear gripped Sarah's heart as she felt something cold and clammy wrap around her wrist. She twisted, looking back toward the door. "Tyler." But he was gone, the darkness swallowing his cries. As despair welled up inside her, Sarah realized, she was nothing but a plaything now, a vessel for the shadows. "Mommy, don't leave me!" The last echoes of her son's plea mingled with the shadows, and just as she thought the darkness would consume her entirely, a desperate thought struck her. What if she opened the trunk? But to do so meant giving up. What trapped horrors lay inside? Could it offer salvation, or would it seal their fate? In her heart, she knew one thing: she was running out of time. What lay ahead, in that cursed trunk, was a choice she never wanted to face. Would she dare take the risk to save them both? Sarah's breath came in strangled gasps as the darkness pulled her deeper into its icy embrace. Panic gripped her chest like a vice. Each second felt like an eternity lost in the void. Thoughts swirled chaotically, but one shone brighter than the rest, the trunk. "Tyler!" she shouted, her voice cracking against the black mist that now smothered her. Did he hear her? Did he know she was still fighting? The shadows were consuming her, dragging her down, whispering sweet horrors into her ear. "Open it," they sang, "find your freedom." The trunk loomed like a distant star in the swirling chaos, a dark promise filled with secrets yet to be uncovered. "If I can just reach it," Sarah thought desperately, her heart thundering like a war drum in her chest. She focused on the grainy surface, its weathered edges, and the subtle details that seemed to pulse with undulating shadows. With every ounce of strength, she kicked back against the shadows. They writhed and hissed but guided her as much as they fought against her. "Let me go. I'll do anything," she screamed, heading toward the trunk, her body jerked, pulled, yet still she pressed on, every muscle screaming in defiance. The locked clasp sat tauntingly in the faded light, almost inviting. "What's inside?" she thought, dread pooling in her stomach. "Is it worth it?" But she knew there was no choice. The trunk might hold the key to freedom or perhaps the end. With a surge of energy, she lunged for it, crashing down before the ancient box. She fumbled with the latch, fingers trembling as dark tendrils tried to snatch her away. Somehow, she managed to pry it open. The hinges screeched in protest, a haunting melody that echoed through the attic. Hesitantly, she peered inside. Her breath caught as a putrid smell hit her nose, an amalgamation of decay and despair. The trunk was filled with old, crumpled photographs, yellowed with age, and tattered pages of forgotten books. But beneath them, half buried in darkness, lay something else, something small and round, glinting with an unnatural light. "What is that?" Sarah whispered, reaching in against the oppressive force of the shadows clutching at her. Just as her fingers brushed against the cool surface, the darkness screamed, a sound torn from the depths of hell. Shadows coiled around her wrists, seeking to pull her back, stealing her breath and her resolve. "Mommy!" Tyler's voice sliced through the darkness, a fragile thread weaving through the chaos. "Tyler!" she cried out again as the trunk trembled with energy. The small object seemed to pulse in response to her call, bursting with light that flickered in the gloom. The shadows shrieked, retreating for a split second, allowing her to gasp for air. The glimmering object felt like a beacon of hope. "Help me!" she begged. What if it saved them? Or condemned them both? Her gut twisted with indecision. The shadow girl emerged again, now fully formed and towering, her mouth twisted into an impossibly wide grin. "Don't you know, Sarah? It's not about what's inside that trunk. It's what you're willing to sacrifice to get it." Sarah's heart raced as she clutched the object tightly. The shadows howled, raging against her defiance. It felt like the final barrier between her and the darkness. "Come on," she urged herself, eyes darting towards the door, the only route left to her. "Please, Tyler," but the shadows surged forward, a crashing tide that threatened to drown her in despair. "Open your eyes, Mommy," the shadow girl taunted, her eyes glowing like dying stars. "You already belong to us." What sacrifices would she have to make to reclaim her son? Would the trunk hold salvation, or was it a trap meant to ensnare her even more? With no time left, Sarah chose. The choice loomed like a dark cloud, heavy and oppressive. She knew opening it wouldn't guarantee a safe passage for Tyler. What price would she ultimately pay? As the shadows enveloped her, she shouted, "No. You won't take him." And plunged into the trunk, hoping against hope for an answer that might save them both. The darkness closed around her, but the light of the object pulsed, as if alive. What truth awaited in the trunk's shadowy depths? Would it reveal the path to Tyler, or would it reveal a hidden terror? The instant Sarah plunged into the trunk, a cold wave crashed over her, swallowing her whole. The light from the object brightened, casting ghostly shadows that danced wildly around her. She felt herself falling, spiraling into an abyss where time lost all meaning. The echo of Tyler's voice faded, replaced by a low, droning hum that gnawed at her sanity. What had she done? As she landed hard on a damp floor, the dizziness faded. She looked around, her heart tremoring with dread. She was no longer in the attic. The old trunk had transported her to a narrow, dimly lit corridor lined with wooden doors, all closed tightly. The air smelled stale, thick with mold and something more sinister. "Tyler!" She screamed, her voice trembling as it bounced off the walls. The corridor stretched endlessly before her, fading into undulating darkness. Panic surged through her veins, and she lunged forward, racing down the hall, her footsteps echoing like a pulse of dread. Each door she passed bore strange symbols carved deep into the wood, twisted faces and grotesque shapes that leered and mocked. With each step, Sarah's mind swirled with nightmares of what could lurk behind those doors. Whispers coiled around her, rising and falling, blending into a cacophony of terror. Sarah, a familiar voice edged through the noise, a soft, desperate plea that pulled at her heartstrings. "Tyler!" She turned sharply, chasing the sound. But it faded once more, leading her to a heavy door at the end of the corridor, its surface smooth and dark, untouched by time. She approached it cautiously, the feeling of being watched gnawing at her spine. Just as her trembling fingers brushed the cold handle, a growl erupted from behind her. Heart pounding, she whipped around to see shadowy figures merge from the dark, their forms indistinct but menacing. They approached in silence, gliding with predatory grace, their eyes glowing like embers. "Leave her!" hissed the shadow girl from the shadows, stepping forward in her towering form. "She doesn't belong to you yet." The creatures paused, confusion flickering in their hollow gazes. In that moment, Sarah's resolve hardened. "I have to find Tyler. Let him go." Her voice cracked, but she stood her ground. "Will you sacrifice what you are for him?" The shadow girl taunted, a cruel smile spreading across her face. "What will you give to claim your child?" The shadows twitched, closing in tighter, their whispers echoing her worst fears. "What do you want?" she shouted, panic clawing at her throat. "I'll do anything." "Anything," the shadow girl mused, her features softening as though considering the deal. "Will you trade your heartbeat for him? Or perhaps your memories?" Sarah's eyes widened with horror. "No. I want tea." Behind her, a door at the far end of the corridor creaked open slightly, a flicker of golden light spilling into the gloom. Then, another cry pierced the air, one filled with both terror and longing. "Mommy! Tyler!" She screamed, adrenaline pushing her forward. With a final burst of strength, she broke past the shadowy figures, dashing for the light. But as she neared, the whispering intensified, clawing at her mind, wrapping around her like chains, desperate to pull her back. "Stop, don't!" echoed the shadows, a collective wail of rage. The glowing door stood ajar, welcoming her into its warmth, but uncertainty clawed at her. What lay beyond? Tyler's voice called her closer, but what if that sanctuary came with a price? Torn between the shadows and the light, Sarah hesitated. What sacrifices would she make to reach her son? The shadows crept ever closer, waiting for her to decide, would she step through the door or remain trapped in the corridor's haunting embrace? Sarah's heart raced as she stood before the glowing door, its light flickering like a dying flame. The whispers grew louder, the shadows closing in, their hot breath chilling her skin. She could hear Tyler's cries, sharp and desperate, catching in her throat like shards of glass. "Mommy! I need you!" It was a plea she couldn't ignore, a mother's instinct wrestling with the dread that had settled deep in her bones. With a surge of courage, she lunged toward the door. The moment her fingers gripped the handle, the shadows shrieked in unison, a sound that echoed her deepest fears. "Don't leave us!" Ignoring their wails, Sarah twisted the handle and thrust the door open. Light flooded the space, brighter than the sun yet somehow soft, like morning mist. The room was vast and eerily beautiful, a dreamscape untouched by the horrors she fled. Golden light bathed the walls, filled with pastel colors and floating shapes that danced like children's laughter. But there was no sign of Tyler. Tyler! She called, her voice echoing in the hollow, empty space. The room felt like it was breathing, its walls pulsing with rhythm, pulling her deeper into its embrace. It was both inviting and foreboding. Mommy? There he was. Tyler stood across the room, a small figure framed in vibrant light, his eyes wide and searching. It felt like a cruel trick, a mirage conjured from pure desire. Tyler! She cried, rushing forward. But the moment she moved, the scenery began to shift. Colors bled into one another, twisting and curling like smoke. The laughter morphed into malicious whispers, weaving through the air like spider silk. Stay with us, the whispers became clearer, sending cold chills down her spine. You could be happy here, forever. The warmth that enveloped her turned frigid. The ground trembled as the beautiful facade shattered, revealing cracked tiles and dark voids beneath her feet. Tyler's image flickered, his form distorted and fleeting, trapped behind an echo of the shadow girl's laughter. Mommy, help me. His voice dimmed, swallowed by the thickening air. No. Sarah screamed, reaching out, but the floor beneath her buckled. She stumbled back, breathless, as dark tendrils crept up from the depths, gripping her ankles like chains. The whispers turned antagonistic, clawing at her mind with shadows of doubt and guilt. You could have him if you just stayed, the words wrapped around her, sweet yet poisoned. Clenching her fists, she forced herself to pull free from their grasp. You're lying. She shouted, fighting against the madness that threatened to consume her. With every ounce of willpower, she turned her back on the vanishing light and raced back toward the door, the heavy shadows blending into monstrous forms reaching out, trying to divert her, trying to pull her back into the darkness. Do you really want to lose your son? The shadow girl's voice was silk and fire, cutting through the chaos. He'll face horrors far worse alone. Stop! Sarah cried, images of Tyler, frightened and alone, igniting a primal instinct deep within her. She couldn't let that happen. Not again. As she neared the door, the shadows clawed at her, shrieking with rage and desperation. But all that mattered now was breaking free. She hurled herself toward the entrance, a barrier between her and the nightmares that hunted her. In an explosive burst of adrenaline, she barreled through, the door slamming shut behind her with a finality that sent a ripple of silence through the corridor. Panting, she looked back, heart hammering in her chest. The corridor was quiet now, but she'd felt something shift beneath the surface. Tyler? Just then, a distant echo of laughter reverberated through the air, chilling her to the core. It was her son, yet not him. A taunting, otherworldly sound intertwined with whispers that filled the empty space. Mommy, come back! Panic plunged back into her heart like a dagger. Where had he gone? And what had she allowed to slip through her fingers? She took hesitant steps forward, aware that the shadows had receded, but the weight of their presence still loomed thick and menacing. Clenching her fists, Sarah prepared herself. She had to face whatever lay ahead. The hunt for Tyler had only just begun. But as she progressed, each step down the corridor brought a gnawing realization she was not just searching for him. She was being hunted too. What had the shadows taken in exchange? What would they demand next? The corridor stretched endlessly, the dim light flickering overhead like a warning flickered in her mind. Sarah felt the walls lean in, suffocating her hope with every tentative step. Her heart hammered against her ribs, the taste of fear swelling thick in her throat. Tyler! She called again, but only silence answered. That eerie laughter echoed once more, mocking her desperation, lingering like an uninvited ghost. Mommy, come back! It twisted in on itself, a shadow mocking her. Determination steadied her resolve. She pressed forward, each footfall swallowed by the oppressive stillness. Every flicker of light made her cringe, visions of what lurked just beyond her sight swirling in her head. They were close. She could feel their eyes on her, hungry and curious. Then she saw a door at the end of the corridor, hidden in the shadows, its facade worn and warped like the faces of those who had come before her. The air around it crackled with a dread that sent chills racing up her spine. She approached cautiously, her instincts screaming to turn back, but she could feel Tyler slipping through her fingers. With shaking hands, she pushed the door open. It creaked, echoing through the darkness. Inside was a small room, dimly lit with flickering candles, the air thick with the smell of burnt wax and something more sinister. Old photographs lined the walls, framing faces twisted in fear, their eyes hollow and staring. They looked alive, each image a story cruelly snatched away. Sarah shuddered. Was that Tyler's laughter hidden among them? "Mommy?" A soft whisper floated through the air, seemingly from nowhere, yet it cut through her thoughts, drawing her closer. "Tyler!" she shouted, heart racing. The whisper morphed into a pained wail, a sound so raw, it made her want to claw her ears and drown out the torment. She felt it then, cold fingers brush against her ankle, and her heart seized. The shadows encircled her, swirling together in a storm of darkness. She spun around, only to find herself in the same room again. Panic clutched at her throat. "Stay with us!" The voices were everywhere now, wrapping around her like a suffocating blanket. She stumbled backward, catching a glimpse of her own reflection distorted in the tall mirror against the wall, her image twisted with despair. This wasn't her. Taking a deep breath, Sarah focused. She couldn't let them win. She had to find Tyler. "Get away from me!" she shouted, shaking off the grip of shadows. As if in response, the room trembled violently. The candles flickered, almost extinguishing, and a heavy gust swept through, overwhelming her. Out of the chaos, the whispers turned into laughter again, raucous and triumphant, swirling around her like a tempest. "Mommy, help me!" Tyler's voice was unmistakable. A surge of adrenaline propelled her forward. She lunged toward the mirror, feeling drawn to the flickering image of her son, now an echo of purity wrapped in the chaos of darkness. "Tyler!" The surface rippled as if the glass morphed into water. She reached out, fingers brushing against the cold glass. Something pulled at her, a force stronger than fear. "Join us!" the shadows wailed in unison, their voices throbbing, trying to entwine her mind. "No!" she breathed, but it was getting harder to push back. The room began folding in on itself, the edges blurring and warping. What was real? The call of her lost son? The deceitful laughter of the shadows? The moment stretched, and Sarah's vision blurred. She felt the world unravel around her, fear creeping in that she couldn't shake off. And then, as quickly as it began, everything snapped back. She found herself standing there, alone, darkness curling around her feet like serpents. The laughter receded, yet it echoed still deep within, reminding her of its presence as she turned away from the mirror. "Tyler," she whispered. Suddenly, the shadows coalesced into a figure tall and menacing, its eyes glowing like embers in the black. "You seek him. But what will you give in return?" Her heart sank as she faced it. Would she trade anything to save him? Time stood still, and Sarah knew the real hunt was about to begin. What price would she have to pay to unlock the secrets of the darkness? As the shadows lunged forward, their whispers intensified, a swirling chaos seeking to encircle Sarah and twist her will. The air thickened, heavy and suffocating, making every breath a battle against despair. "What do you want from me?" she shouted, struggling against the icy fingers reaching for her. The towering shadow girl smiled, revealing jagged teeth that gleamed with malice. "You know what we desire, Sarah. Sacrifice. What will you pay to reclaim your boy?" The words slithered into her mind like poison, twisting her thoughts. Memories of Tyler flooded her heart, his laughter, his trust, the way his small hands clasped hers. But beneath that love lurked a chilling fear that she might lose him forever. "Anything!" she screamed, desperation pouring out in a tidal wave. Just let him go. The shadow paused, tilting her head, intrigue dancing across her features. Anything, you say? Could you bear the weight of your choices? Tell me, what will you sacrifice? The question hung in the air, heavy and electric. Sarah took a step back, her hands trembling as the shadows coiled closer, their whispers merging into a haunting melody of promises and threats. The room pulsed with anticipation, the shadows seemingly alive, feeding off her fear and anguish. Don't play games with me, Sarah shouted, battling the choking dread. Just bring him back. As if in response, the flickering candles flared, illuminating the walls covered in writhing images, the faces of those who had come before her, lost and consumed by the darkness. The reality struck her, these were all mothers, like her, who had surrendered their children. A rising panic clawed at her throat. She could not be the next victim. Sarah Tyler's voice echoed once more, distant yet ever closer, a haunting lullaby of desperation that tugged at her heart. She felt a surge of determination rise within her. I'll fight you, she cried, her throat burning. I will not give up my son to you. For a moment, a flicker of anger crossed the shadow girl's features. You think your will can surpass the darkness? Choose wisely, what you value most will cost you dearly. There it was again. The terrible offer loomed. With shaky breaths, Sarah closed her eyes, forcing herself to think of Tyler alone amid the shadows, imagining the way he looked when he felt safe. No price was too great to keep him from suffering. Take my memories, she blurted out, the words tumbling from her lips before she could second-guess herself. I'll forget everything, but just bring him back. He deserves to be free. Silence enveloped them, suffocating. The shadows recoiled, a whirlwind of dark energy swirling in anticipation. So you would trade your past for your future? How noble. The shadow girl clapped her hands slowly, mockingly. Very well, your sacrifice has been accepted. With those chilling words, the shadows coalesced, swirling around Sarah, gripping her tighter as they began to twist and pull at her essence. The light began to flicker, dimming around her, shapes pulling away from her memory, joyous moments, laughter, and quiet whispers faded into oblivion. Mommy! It was Tyler now, closer this time, his voice filled with panic, urging her to hold on. Tyler! She screamed back, her voice echoing. I'm here. I'll find you. But as the shadows feasted on her memories, it felt like the essence of who she was evaporated. Familiar images of their time together twisted and blurred. Faces of joy became obscured, floating further away, slipping through her fingers like grains of sand. Then, like a jolt of thunder, everything stopped. Sarah opened her eyes to find herself standing alone again in the dim room. The shadows had receded, now only wisps of fog swirling at her feet, but the darkness still loomed ominous and heavy. Where's Tyler? She gasped, her voice a ragged whisper. What have you done? A low chuckle echoed from the shadows, as a portal of swirling energy opened before her. He awaits on the other side. The transformation is done, but you will have no recollection of what was lost. Step through, mother. You have yourself, yet. You've discarded your past. Heart racing, Sarah took a hesitant step towards the light radiating from the portal. Memories of Tyler, laughter, and warmth flickered at the edges of her mind, fighting against the consuming darkness. For every haunted face, every malignant whisper that sought to entrap her, there was a flicker of hope she could not extinguish. Mommy! His voice grew louder this time, echoing from the doorway. Please! Everything inside her screamed to push through. She didn't care about the cost, she only wanted him safe, whole and free from the torment of shadows. With one final push, she stepped into the light, the brightness enveloped her, filling each crevice of her heart with what felt like warm sunshine, a rekindled hope. As she emerged on the other side, she gasped, taking in the radiant beauty of a sun-drenched field. The sky was vivid blue, and the sweet scent of wildflowers filled the air. And there, sitting happily with a trail of daisies in his hands, was Tyler. Sarah fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. "Tyler. My baby. Mommy." He cried, racing towards her and throwing himself into her embrace. The warmth enveloped her, igniting the flickering memories now returning, but she clutched him tightly, not caring about the fading images of shadows or lost moments. "This is what matters," she whispered, feeling the weight of love pressing against her chest. The darkness was gone, leaving only their laughter among the flowers, unfettered and free. Together, they stood in that moment, both heavy with shadows yet light with affection, liberating their hearts from the curse that had tried so desperately to consume them. Together, they had faced the darkness and emerged into the brilliant light of resilience. As they walked hand in hand, Sarah knew she would never forget. Her heart had been reshaped, marked by sacrifice, but filled now with the strength of hope. Their hope. Never again would she let anything threaten that bond. It was their love that kept the darkness at bay. And as she looked down at Tyler, she understood no price was too high when it came to protecting her child. This was her victory. A new beginning. If this story gripped you, you need to subscribe now. Don't wait even one more second. Show your support and smash that like button. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about Sarah and Tyler's incredible escape. What did you think? And remember, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You can't miss out on what comes next.